Uh, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has kind of, sort of, maybe a little bit, kind of like, may resemble little smidgen of an apology for his podcast, right? Um, I think he did exactly what he should have did. I think he said exactly what he should have said. In fact, I think if he wants to differentiate himself from the other major platforms, a la CNN, a Fox, he said he is going to try to have the other side of the argument on his platform more. So it doesn't seem like he's just pushing a narrative. If you look
Right.
at left wing media versus right wing media, they say the same thing. Every single show, it's the same message. If Rogan does what he says he's going to do, I think it's going to make for a better podcast. Period. Because it's not just two guys agreeing with each other. You're going to have a little bit of,
Right.
and then B, it's just even playing ground. Also, you're going to attract more of a larger audience. I personally don't watch Fox because I think they talk nothing but BS. So some people might feel that way about Rogan. I'm not going to go to Rogan's podcast. He says stuff I don't agree with constantly. Why would I go there? If he's now having a conversation with a different side of the argument, also, if he's open to learning, that's going to also expand his audience even more so. So I personally like this.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the main attack against his podcast is that it's biased, right? It's coming from one side, and according to everybody, the side that it's coming from is the wrong side, and it's not just him; it's the people that he has on his show. So let's be clear: people are not just attacking Joe Rogan; people are attacking his choice of guests and what they're saying when they're
Sure.
on his show, and the information that's being provided as well. That's why people are coming for the overall Spotify, because it's just like Spotify. They feel Spotify should have some kind of control over this. Now, of course, him choosing to say that he's going to balance things out is great, but is he going to seek out extremists of the opposite side and then try to battle them, or is it going to be people that's like, how is he going to find these people? Like, I feel like now it's going to be something that's kind of forced. Like, I hope that the content ends up better and it doesn't just end up in an argument with two people who won't be able to come to any sense of a center ground, right? Because when you have somebody who's too extreme to one side, there's no point in having a discussion with them. There really isn't, because
Yeah.
they're just going to try to push their they're just going to try to push their agenda. That's not a great interview. I want
Well,
people to come to some kind of understanding, me personally.
yeah. I mean, but again, that's what I was saying. Joe Rogan has to be open and willing to learn. You understand what I'm saying? Because if his podcast has only pushed one narrative for the longest time, people might be like, "Oh, you're gonna have people that think different than you." You're
Right.
just having them there, just, you know what I mean, just to show. Like, you don't care. You're just gonna, you know what I mean? Maybe
It
insult.
does look that, yeah, you're right. It does look that way. Like he's kind of vetting people and seeing what their points are, and they're like, oh, I agree with that. And he's just kind of saying, come on my show and spew some of that for me, please.
But if he now takes the approach where he's open to learning and having it's fine. He could push back. That's entertaining. Like, I don't really just want to see two people. Oh, yeah, I never knew that. Okay, I never knew that. No, have a brain. Like, stand for something. But I
But why
think
but why do people ignore the interview, like with the one he did with Sanjay Gupta? Why is that one overlooked? Because there's somebody who came in with a totally different opinion, and he spoke with Joe Rogan,
well,
and you
because
saw
it's
how
that's
that
that's yeah,
conversation
but
turned
that's
out.
not always the case. The bulk of his guests are like-minded people. You know what I mean? He doesn't always have somebody on, especially when we're talking about COVID, right?
Right.
Or anything controversial or
I
whatever.
think that's the main argument. I think this has to do with mainly his discussions about COVID, because that's when all of this
When
came
he
up.
gets in
That's what they're
trouble.
dealing with, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's and
So
it's a global pandemic, and I only do the air quotes because some of these countries are just saying F this. You know what I mean? So but yeah, I like it. I think it's a good move. I don't typically watch the Joe Rogan podcast. I think he's super entertaining, but it's just not my bag. But if he does move forward with this, it might entice me to listen. Just to see again,
right.
like I said, how he takes in the information. That's all. Um,
Well, there was one part of his apology where he was saying, he has a problem with the term misinformation, because a lot of people are saying what he's spreading is that the opinion is that it's a misinformation. And what he's saying is all he's spitting is an opinion that's different from the mainstream narrative. He's saying there's a difference between those two. And the reason that he said that he has a problem with the term misinformation is due to the change in like the scientific consensus with a lot of things, such as like how effective masks can be, or whether or not people who get vaccinated can transmit the disease. These are things that have changed. The opinions have changed as to how, first of all, what type of mask you need to use has changed. And of course, we know now that vaccinated people can transmit the disease, which wasn't the case when we first heard about this, right? So when you're saying these things and people are saying they're misinformation and they're proven to be true, this is why he's saying, I don't like people using that term. What do you think about that?
It's very simple. This painting behind me, right? What color is it?
Red. It looks reddish and a little orange with some yellow, a
Cool.
little burgundy in there as
Correct.
well.
I think anybody looking at this painting, especially a painter, someone who works in paint and color, they would agree with you, right? So the expert who works in paint and color, if they agree with you, it's a fact. It's just what it is. Now, fine, we've established that. I could look at this painting and say it's black. Bro, that's my opinion. I'm allowed to have it. I'm allowed to have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, but it goes against what the actual fact is. And the facts are traditionally determined by the experts in that field, right? So he's 100% entitled to having his own opinion, right? But the misinformation is your opinion is contradicting fact. And that's the issue, right? So that's
Right.
why, like, for platforms like his, what a lot of people were saying is put a disclaimer in front of it. That's all you got to do. Blanket, you're
And yeah,
good.
that is what Spotify chose to do.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know what the disclaimer is going to say specifically, but I know that if he says his program is going to change, what we got to do with Joe Rogan, we just got to wait and see what happens.
All
That's what
right.
we got to do.
Well, here's to waiting. Viewing public, what are your thoughts? Do you think that Mr. Rogan caved? Should he switch up? Are you going to unsubscribe? Because I know you're subscribed to Joe Rogan shit, just not this one, asshole. But leave it in the comments. I was joking about the asshole remark. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please, for the love of God, subscribe. Deuces. Okay.